Hello, everybody. I'm Vishal Krishna, the founder of the UpStreamLife.com. And as usual, I bring you people who really make a difference in society. I've got with me Rohit Kochar, the founder of Bert Labs. And Bert Labs is a transformation company. They help you guys get close to your ESG goals, and they use AI to do it. But I'll let Rohit tell me what Bert Labs does. And you have to watch this interview for that very reason. What is Bert Labs?
So, hi, listeners, and thank you, Vishal.
Thank you.
So, Bert Labs is a business transformation company. So, we leverage technology, which is proprietary, patented, at the intersection of AI and IoT, to help enterprises and governments achieve their business transformation goals. So, this would be around ESG, production, quality, supply chain, and we do this, by creating a digital transformation infrastructure, and on top of that, have AI do the enabling work of bringing in specific business objectives for these companies.
By the way, guys, what I must tell you is they have really done good work. They generate cash in their business. Most of them use AI as a narrative, but this man has gone on to build a business out of it. And that's why you have to watch this interview. The sponsors of this interview are Finverse. You have to know about money if you're a startup founder, if you're a BCom student, if you're a BA student, and if you're a writer, more so know about money. So upskill yourself, download the Finverse platform and get to know about money today. But watch this interview to know how you can build a business with AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vishal.
Mr. Rohit, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. Since meeting you a month ago, I've become a fan of what Bert Labs is doing, digital transformation with AI. And you actually enlightened me as to what AI can do for India and the world. But not many people understand it because there's so much narrative going out there. So quickly, tell me what Bert Labs is so people get an idea and why we need AI today.
So Bert Labs was founded in 2017, and the focus is, how we can build a research and innovation focused company from India. So that was fundamental to when we started Bert Labs, because I've been fortunate to be part of the IT services industry.
The boom in IT services.
The boom,
yes.
Yeah. Last 20, 25, 30 years. And obviously the industry has done phenomenally well in terms of one, the employment. Second, software talent. It has put India on a global map. AI today from India or in India is because of IT services. How, companies from India have done, and they have become world beaters.
So you're saying that they laid the foundation for whatever we are today?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And this is something which people don't appreciate. Today when we talk to college graduates, they curse IT services. It's a commoditized business, and there isn't enough learning. And what we also come to know that these companies, they find, in the campus placement also not day 0 or day 1. They find, a day 8th or 9th or 10th. Now, everybody, most importantly, this talent coming out of institutions should realize that it's because of these companies for last 20, 25, 30 years. We are talking about IOT, we are talking about 5G, we are talking about AI, we are talking about digital transformation. So every foundation is built brick by brick, and they, laid the foundation earlier than, what today is digital transformation, AI, etc. So Bert Labs is an attempt to build on top of that foundation. So how the focus on research and innovation and to solve very complex problems through innovation. Now, these complex problems, are a variety of them out there. But what is one such problem which is universal? So energy was the focus from day one, because whether it is 2017 or 2023 or 2030 or 50, energy would always be a focus for governments as well as private sector. Governments, developed markets, developing markets. So energy became the focus for Bert Labs. And when we started, we had this realization that energy has 3 parts to it. So there's generation, there's distribution, and then there's consumption. So for an early stage company, it's important to find, the low hanging fruit to begin with. So the low hanging fruit was energy consumption. Now in energy consumption, what is a further low hanging fruit? It is on the commercial building side. Because manufacturing is a major energy guzzler compared to commercial buildings all over the world. The CO2 emission and the norms around it, it is more applicable for the manufacturing plants. But manufacturing, and both in terms of client perspective, getting clients on board, also from the perspective of building a product, it is difficult. So we started with commercial buildings. And in commercial buildings, what is the major energy guzzler is your heating and cooling systems.
Agreed.
So our focus became heating and cooling system, and to create what today is Bert Platform Solution around it. So Bert Platform Solution, has the ability to sense, transmit what we sense, what we transmit, to store, process, analyze, and most importantly, finding the brain. Brain is, the AI compute on this data. So that's how, this framework of Bert Platform Solution was laid. So that's how, it started, and that's how, we reached to a point where AI became, in fact, I'll tell you a story around Walmart.
Please.
We had a gentleman called Chris Iyer, who was the CEO of Walmart India.
Yes, I remember him. I know him also, yes.
So Chris and a couple of his relevant guys, meaning head of operations and supply chain and head of technology, they got involved in 2017 itself with us. At that time, we had a solution for monitoring. So how, through prediction and, through predicted performance of a commercial building going into the future, we can change the behaviors of human beings, and therefore that leading to energy consumption reduction. So the guys at Walmart, they told us that just the monitoring will not get you so far. So you need to bring in the control element. Now that's how, the journey of AI started. Now how do we incorporate the control element in our solution? So the brain, which is Bert Optimus and Bert Geminis, which is the AI, real-time, AI models, what we built, was born after, this discussion with Walmart.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
So you worked with them on a pilot or something at the time?
No, I don't remember right now, where did it pause at that time, but there aren't, enough Walmart stores here in India, because the idea was that whether it's their refrigeration units, which consumes, I remember, around 30% of their energy. The HVAC consumes, another 30% of their energy, and the remaining 30% was consumed through their lighting.
Okay.
Now there weren't enough, stores here in India. So that's where, it paused at that time, but certainly would like to pick up with them. And similarly, other large retail stores, whether it's Metro Cash and Carry or other retail stores. But what we did was we went, to airports, we went to hospitals, hotels, large office complexes, and we focused on HVAC systems.
Fantastic. Okay.
And we focused on HVAC systems, one, to understand what the current solutions are from large technology companies. What we found out was that the air side and the water side of heating and cooling system was being looked at separately. So there was a separate solution for the water side, separate solution for the air side.
Absolutely.
We felt that why this should be at the first place, because the air side determines the load on the building. Right now, in this room, there are, 5-6 of us.
Yes.
Now, this is contributing to the load. The ambient temperature is contributing to the load. Based on this load, we have to control, the heating and cooling system. So this air side and water side needs to be integrated. So that's how, we conceptualized, designed, architected, researched, and developed Bert Platform Solution, which is integrating air side and water side. And that's why, we have Bert Platform Solution executed at the head office of a leading global FMCG company. It's the only head office which is now owned by this company.
Got it. This is in India?
This is in India, in Mumbai.
Okay.
And this is a 1 million square feet office campus. It houses, the head office of this company here in India. It has pilot manufacturing units. It has R&D facilities. And they had building management system. On top of it, they had another technology which was brought into the market in 2018 by this technology company. This BERT platform solution was deployed over and above this solution and brought in 52% energy savings. And the reason, because we integrated both air side and water side.
Interesting. This is a great introduction. I want to stick to the technology. When you meet corporate, and you are absolutely right, they all buy individual solutions from individual people. And at the end of the day, you'll probably have 15, 16 solutions giving you their own dashboards. And they may not be intelligent. It is not integrated. And on top of that, there is no AI. A lot of people claim to have AI, for example, the HVAC systems. They will say, we will study the noise in your HVAC system and then predict the failure of the HVAC system. That's one way of saying it. Then there'll be a company that will say that they will sense the noise in the machines and they'll fix the machine. But it's not really contributing to energy savings as such. Individually, maybe yes, but together, you don't know how much you've saved. That's where you came in and put in this framework. Did you have to build on top of these systems? Were they open systems? Did these companies have control of these platforms? Did you have to reintegrate these platforms? How do you actually look at a corporate that's expanding? That was a very good example of that Mumbai company. How do they look at technologies like this when Bert comes and says, this is how we have to look at it? Doesn't it shock them that they already spent so much on IT instead of an integrated version like you spoke about?
So, several elements which you have covered in your question. I'll try to, address them one by one. One is, the existing monitoring solution, in all fairness to them, yes, was contributing towards energy savings. Mm-hmm. How? Because if you and I, as building management system operators, come to know how my chiller will perform, say 1 week from now, in terms of what the consumption will be, and the consumption is on the higher side, I will take all the measures today and I'll instruct all my team members to take measures today, not to have, the consumption on the higher side. So that's how, a monitoring solution was contributing. But there was a glass ceiling. The glass ceiling was, 5 to 10% savings, what these solutions were bringing. And that's what, the Walmart discussion with us, it enlightened us that this is how much we can contribute. Now, there is a lot of gap between this and what potentially we can bring in terms of the savings. And how did this savings come about? One is, this is the second part of your question, which is integrating with the existing solution. So from day one, we were very sure at Bert Labs that we will be a plug and play. Whatever our client has today, we will never ask our client to replace. Whatever they have, we will integrate it with the solution, hardware to hardware, software to software. So the same example of, the head office of this FMCG company, they have technology which is controllers from a leading technology company. Now we integrated Bert Minicom, which is our proprietary controller, with this third-party controller. And this integration has been possible because of all the years of work which the industry has done, which is they have, a common communication protocol, which defines, the communication between two controllers. So we built our controller, which understands that communication. So these communication are, OPC, UA, OPC, DA, BACnet, Profinet, Profibus. So that's one part of integration. The other part of integration, the same company works with a leading public cloud provider. Now we have Bert Nova, which is our distributed microservices computing platform.
Would this be like some form of edge compute devices?
This is software on edge computing device.
Okay.
So Bert Nova has been designed, architected, and built to manage data and big data. There's a difference between data and big data, meaning several terabytes of data being managed at the same time, real time. And this is for variety of business cases to be solved. And therefore, the business objective and therefore the objective function when you are writing a AI code, all that, is not just aligned with energy efficiency or production efficiency or quality improvement. It's a mix of all these. So, BERT Nova, it through an API calling integrates with the virtual machines of this cloud
enabler, yes.
Cloud enabler.
Yes.
So that's how software to software integration happens. Then there is an existing control logic. Now, this existing control logic, it works on PID control. It works on rule-based control. Now, these are reactive controls, meaning there's an action needed, and that action is conveyed, to the human operator. The human operator, based on his or her expertise, makes changes manually.
Right.
Now, this is a single input and a single output control logic. What we have ended up building is where there is multiple input. And that's what, whether it's HVAC system, and later on, we obviously developed this solution for manufacturing plants where there are few hundreds, and the reality is few thousands of variables parameters. Now, a human mind, in spite of 30 years, 40 years of his expertise spending in one process line, in one plant, can't fathom, the correlations between these hundreds and thousands of variables. But AI logic written by Bert Optimus, Bert Geminis, research scientists, is able to do that, and is able to do that real time, and every second or every minute, whatever is the requirement.
Okay. Quick.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt you quickly because people watching this must realize that it sounds very engineering, but it's related to business.
Yes.
It's related to business because one is the cost savings in terms of energy. It's a CFO conversation.
Yes.
It's a CEO conversation because it drives efficiency of the members at work, and therefore it probably increases sales because product quality improves perhaps. And finally, I think it's also the ESG thing that everybody talks about: environment, governance and sustainability, right? Would I be correct in saying these three things?
Absolutely.
Okay. What are your thoughts? I mean, do people take this seriously? Okay.
Very good question, and a very pertinent question.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because let's look at this, from the perspective of ESG and from the perspective of smart buildings and smart factories, as the industry has coined these terminologies. Now, this is basically preparing, a company for the future, and for today and for the future. So, today, as I speak with you, when it comes to developed markets, governments have mandated, and that's what we are seeing among our client organizations, a chairman, a CEO, that you need to be zero carbon or carbon neutral compliant by 2025 or 2030. Obviously, they need interventions from technology companies like us. In India, also, this consciousness is coming through, even though it is not yet compulsory from the government, whether it's central or the state. But what we are seeing is that every company today either has a chief sustainability officer or is in the process of hiring a chief sustainability officer. So that consciousness is there. And therefore, our relevance and BERT platform solution relevance for that CSO. And because the CSO reports directly to the CEO or to the chairman who has this mandate, that's why, it becomes the direct responsibility of the CEO or the chairman. Okay. So that's one part. The other part, is around chief manufacturing officer or chief supply chain officer. Now, their mandate is how to digitally transform their factories. Because today, my advice to all my CEO friends or CXO friends is that digital transformation infra needs to come ahead of your physical plant infra.
Because we are talking about Industry 4.0. Yes. Everybody is.
Yes.
And many people have different narratives. And I agree with you. Yeah. Why? So you have to tell me why they should look at it seriously. Digital transformation before plant transformation.
Because everything is about AI. Now, I'll give you one example. There is a Chandigarh-based pulp and paper manufacturer. It's around 1,000 plus crore manufacturer, started by the grandfather of the current chairman, and been in operations for 40 plus years. Now, they brought us on board for energy, production, quality, supply chain, and also went on to talk about sales and marketing, how Bert Platform
They
Solution.
included you in the full stack?
Full stack.
Okay.
Full stack. After a while, they came to us and said that we are in the process of resizing, rejuvenating the entire physical infrastructure. Why? Because there are serious fundamental issues in the equipment which we are using. So pulp and paper, for the interest of your listeners, has a pulp manufacturing site and a paper manufacturing site. So there are certain equipments like digester, evaporator, paper machine which are used. Now, I'll not get into the technical details of it. And then there are equipments which obviously this company has procured from Europe, and it has been in existence for all these 40 years. Now, there were serious fundamental issues which these equipments had. Now, the argument which was presented to us is that when we would resize these equipments or change components of these equipments, all that data which we would have gathered and stored and processed will not be useful.
Absolutely.
So we want you to pause on your deployment, and once we have this rejuvenation done of our plant, then deploy your solution. But my argument to him was that even if you change the components, the ecosystem in terms of your demand side will not change. That also has gone into building these AI models. You are changing XYZ equipments, but ABC equipments are the same. So all that data capture, data processing, and data analysis will still hold good for a new set of equipment which you will acquire. So that's why the data infrastructure needs to come ahead of the physical infrastructure. Because it's like, I'll give you a very trivial analogy, but an effective one. Now, you and your listeners are listening to me and are able to process the data which you and your listeners are getting. Now, this is being built on the already existing processed mind which you have, your own neural network.
Correct.
On data on AI. It is not independent of that. So whatever that equipment has already learned, that learning will always be there. On top of that learning, further learning will be built.
You have to build sense into what's going on next. Right? That's the predictive, prescriptive.
Yes. And it's always built on top of what's already existing. So even if you will change certain elements of your neural network, but the whole neural network doesn't change.
Okay.
So the new data points, the parameters will remain the same, but the values may differ because you are changing the old components with the new components. So the parameters will remain the same, but the values will.
Therefore, coming back to your original statement, you don't have to replace everything. There is an existing infrastructure. Just enhance that infrastructure. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The physical infrastructure can be enhanced.
Yes.
The physical infrastructure can be replaced also.
Yes.
But all that data for the old infrastructure will still hold good. That's my point.
That's a lovely point. Yeah. Quickly, you said 52% is a cost saving. Tell it to us in numbers, just so that young people today understand numbers better.
So 7 crore was their overall energy consumption from one campus.
This pulp company.
No, I'm talking about 52% was the head
FMCG
office of
company.
FMCG company.
Okay, 7 crore was the cost.
Was the annual energy cost.
Okay.
So 30% of that we have brought it down. So we have brought it down by 3 crores. So now their energy cost is 4 crore.
Amazing. And what do they do with the saved money? Do they compensate you further?
Yes, obviously, there is a Bert Platform Solution fees, which is, our SaaS-based fees, which we charge from them. and then the remaining year on year is based on the savings what we are bringing. So yes, they do compensate.
And they can reinvest in either in the business, or they can
Absolutely.
digitally enhance the business even more.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all going in their bottom line, and
Okay.
cost, capital efficiency is the focus, cost reduction is the focus, and profitability is the focus.
Fantastic. Now, for FMCG companies, retailers, automobile manufacturers, any type of manufacturers, just tell us that how many systems do they currently have, from HVAC to anything that manages noise and noise efficiency in the plant, and how Bert can play a role to integrate all these in one.
Sure. So,
how many systems would they usually have?
So I have to use, few specific examples. Please. Because different systems, have different manufacturing plants have different systems. So let me take the example of automobile.
Yeah, please. That's my
now, automobile, major energy guzzler is paint shop.
Yes.
Now, we work both on the four-wheeler side as well as on the two-wheeler side. But the process of paint shop remains the same. So there is a PTCED where the body in white, or the body parts of your two-wheelers, they get washed, and they get washed by plain water, and then with a lot of chemicals, and then there's the first layer of paint coating which happens. That paint coating needs to be baked, so there's a process of curing, and then there's few more layers of paint coating which happens. Now, in all this process, there is a lot of fuel consumption, and there's a lot of electricity consumption. And then obviously, there is a lot of scope in terms of productivity improvement and quality improvement. So what we do is, so there is a process side and there is a utility side. So utility side would have burners. The burners, they consume fuel like, coal, fuel like PNG, LPG, etc. Yes. The electricity side is obviously kWh. Right. Now, this can be generated directly from the grid, or it can be generated, through captive as well as, through renewables. Yes. So it can be from solar, which a lot of our client organizations they have. Yeah. But irrespective of that, our job is whatever is being consumed, that needs to be saved. So that's our job. So whether what gets generated from solar or grid, it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter how many systems they have. You can just come in and tell them that this is how you can do it.
So there is system on the process side.
Yes.
There is system on the utility side. We integrate Bert Maximus, Bert Curious, which is our IOT devices infra with both these systems.
Okay. So process and utility side, yes. That's a key subject.
Yes.
Okay.
And this integration helps us to capture data, sense data. Capture data, sense data based on the granularity, coverage, and quality. Meaning, there shouldn't be gaps in the data. That's important when we lay out, the data infrastructure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then this data needs to be stored, processed, analyzed. So that's done over the edge. That's done on-premise server. That's done on the cloud server. Any public cloud, any private cloud. So that's done by Bert Nova infrastructure.
And it's an hybrid that you can manage.
Yes.
That's great. So Rohit, all this that you talked about, you have a subject that you want to cover called reinforcement engineering. What do you mean by reinforcement engineering?
So our overarching philosophy, and therefore, the technology what we build behind the brain, which is the AI brain, is deep reinforcement learning.
Okay.
So just to explain this as a philosophy, you and I, have faculties. These faculties, they become state space. And based on this state space, we take actions. And our actions are taken keeping in mind what our objectives are. Some of these actions, they give us favorable experiences. Some don't. And in our subconscious state, through, those state space, we give them rewards or penalties.
Okay.
And actions where we give rewards, those actions are repeated. And they are repeated to the extent where our learning gets maximized, keeping, the end objective in mind. So that's the fundamental philosophy of reinforcement learning. So reinforcement learning fundamentally is an unsupervised learning. So AI models, are primarily categorized between supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So this is an unsupervised learning. So it's high risk, but the rewards are tremendous. Because in a manufacturing ecosystem, it's a highly constrained ecosystem. Like if the deviation in a pharma API or a formulation is more than 30 minutes, the FDA will cancel the license. If it is more than 5 minutes, the FDA will question. So it's as constrained as that. If the effective metal temperature, which is the car body surface temperature, it's not maintained as it is stipulated, then the paint coating will get peel off and several crores of rupees are lost. So it's a highly constrained environment we are living in. So reinforcement learning hasn't been tried up till now, and Bert Labs has been working on it for last 5 years and successfully deploying at over 30 plus manufacturing plants across automobile, pharma, chemicals, specialty chemicals, cement, FMCG, commercial buildings, etc. Now, the power of reinforcement learning, it's a combination of two very powerful neural networks. Now, this was out there, but because at the application level, anywhere in the world, it hasn't been done at this magnitude and at this depth. Therefore, what we ended up building is a lot of BERT ingenuity into it. And therefore, a lot of, patent filing and, patent, and granted. So, reinforcement learning, it has the ability to take into consideration of thousands of variables over a long period in time. And the long period in time can go up to 10 years. So 10 years historical, 10 years into the future. And, any manufacturing plant has, as per the technical term, IO points, input and output points. What are these fundamentally? These are all sensors, like for example, we work with a specialty chemical manufacturing plant, which is Gujarat based. Now they have 4,000 plus IO points. So 4,000 plus sensors in their manufacturing. This is a caustic chlorine manufacturing. Now reinforcement learning has the ability to take, all these 4,000 points every single second. Yeah. Find correlations between them every single second. And these IO points are, and from these IO points, these are all measurable points. But then there are non-measurable points, which are called soft sensors. Now, reinforcement learning, the neural network has the ability to infer from these measurable inputs all those latent inputs, which a human mind for last 30 years, 40 years, and those PID controls and rule-based logic controls, they were not able to. But reinforcement learning is able to do it for us and for our clients. Once these correlations are found, then the best possible combinations are chosen every second. That's how powerful it is. And through our BERT platform solution, these best possible combinations are real-time actuated. Right. So that's why, the power of reinforcement learning, which predicts at an accuracy of 99.99% in few cases, but the range of prediction in the manufacturing ecosystem which we work is anywhere from 94% to 99.99%.
This is part of business transformation. Yeah. I think it's more than plant transformation, right? This is direct, like you said, if the temperature in the paint shop is not maintained, and when you coat the paint, it may peel off, and therefore recalls might happen for new vehicles. So would you consider what you just said, the reinforcement engineering, being supportive of business transformation also?
No, this is business transformation. Why? Because the end business cases which we are focused on. Yes. So improving, the productivity of a plant and improving the quality of the final produce, and obviously all the intermediaries in terms of the quality. This is business transformation from the perspective of how companies across sectors can contribute towards making this global ecosystem more energy efficient, more clean when it comes to the environment.
That's your larger goal. Yes, it is business transformation, but it also saves on energy. That's your goal, isn't it?
But this is a larger goal which is no longer esoteric. It's no longer abstract. It's become real because clean environment is become very fundamental for you and I to breathe the air around us. As fundamental as that. And therefore, this has become very, very important as it is, the top line and bottom line. That is why, this FMCG company we were talking about, the global CEO mandate is not bottom line and top line. It is how to make his company globally as a carbon neutral company by 2030.
Wow,
that's what is prevalent across sectors.
For me, this is also transformative because of the leadership. If the global CEO of that company is taking these decisions, I want to move into a little bit of leadership questions. Sure. ESG is real. It's also a part of compliance. A lot of people just want to be compliant.
Sure.
Let me start with the journey of ESG compliance.
Yeah.
Some companies do it as a tick box. Some companies want to work with Bert and say, let's do this because we believe that our children have to be safer. The future generations must take over a company that talks about energy savings, giving back to the planet. How many such companies do you meet in the greenfield and brownfield kind of environment today?
There's a lot of education which is required to all these CXOs and CEOs, which we are doing. That's how it starts with. There is a consciousness which they have. This consciousness here in India is generated more from the perspective of what we are learning from, the developed markets, where the governments have mandated, the CEOs and the chairmen with these, business objectives to be realized by their respective companies. But in terms of execution on the ground, that is slow and very slow, because up till now, what we are understanding is they are looking at digital transformation, through digital transformation, realizing ESG goals as something which they were looking at hardware. Hardware, in terms of, their manufacturing plants. That attitude change needs to come about. That this is different from procurement of hardware. This is different from supply, installation and commissioning.
Yes.
This is very, very different. So the attitude towards a vendor who is providing you business transformation solution needs to be different from a vendor who is providing you a hardware solution. So it starts from there. So that's why, what we do is we start our dialogue. It's very important for us to start dialogue right at the top. And drive this, from the top to, the plant head and the plant operators. Because ESG, the focus needs to be at the plant level. So this is not just achieved by the CEO, by the CSO, Chief Sustainability Officer. It needs to bring in, the CIO, the Chief Digital Officer, and the Chief Manufacturing Officer. So it's a role which needs to be understood, by all these, positions within any leadership of any organization across sectors.
So there's a lot of reinforcement for you to go and tell them that this is what you have to do and get all these people on the same table. In most cases, how tough is it? I mean, from a scale of 1 to 10, in India, what would be the difficulty? In terms of the US and Europe, what would be the difficulty for you to win a client?
In India, it is 2.
Oh, wow.
In Europe and, US, it is 7, 8. That's where we are.
That means we are still 5 points away from this.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is, we also spoke about, the difference between early stage company and the corporates.
Yes.
Now, there's no difference as we were discussing, because a company, first year of operations, company into 50th year or 100th year of operations. Our objective needs to be creation of institutions.
Yeah, and you're a big fan of that. I'm glad you brought that up, and that was my next question. One is ESG is also a part of this institution building. And what is deeper institution building? You come from I wouldn't say that a generation, but there was a generation that wanted to build institutions. Now it's about a generation that wants to build equity-funded institutions, which basically means quick idea, quick exit. Leave the management and institution building to someone else. So what are your thoughts?
See, to begin with, any company which is conceptualized is an entrepreneurial dream.
Correct.
That entrepreneur building that company from scratch to where it can get to 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever is that time period, is a different company which gets built versus a company which at a given point in time is is led by set of professionals, because everything is the thought process with which you start a company. So institution building in true sense happens from, if you see around all companies who are today institutions, India or globally, still in some form, shape, size, the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial team is still alive in those companies. And I will link this with the previous point which we were discussing, which is entrepreneurship is, yes, to create wealth for oneself, but more importantly for a larger audience, larger internal and external stakeholders. And there are examples, but very few examples when it comes to equity being shared with a lot of people who contribute towards institution building. But it is also how we can contribute towards nation building. You have US where it is. Why? Because across all spheres of life, they have built institutions. In India, IT services, they have created institutions.
Agreed.
How many sectors, except a Tata or a Aditya Birla Group, how many sectors we have companies who are out there globally and are household names or are names to reckon with in their respective ecosystem? There aren't too many.
Very few, yeah.
So it is pertinent for all of us to realize, all entrepreneurs to realize, that it's not about entry and exit and creating wealth for few select people. This, please do. It will come through, through institution building also. But the larger objective of creating a nation, which our nation is hugely capable of. We have been talking for me, now close to 5 decades. I am 49 today. For last 5 decades, India has huge potential. These are the factors. I'll not go into the factors because they have become such common knowledge now with all of us. And we keep discussing those factors again and again and again, on different forums about factors favoring India. But are those factors leading to the results, actionable goals, and the objectives to be realized? Very less. And one way of doing it is in every sphere of life, in every sector, we create institutions from India. And for that to happen, this is what, the goal, one of the goal of Bert Labs is. How? I'll tell you. One is creating institution out of Bert Labs. The other is when I'm working with 1,000 crore pulp and paper manufacturing company or a 4,000 crore specialty chemical manufacturing company or a 2,000 crore cement company. These are all medium enterprises. Now, these medium enterprises becoming world beaters 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line through digital transformation. Through what we have learned up till now.
Sustainable institutions with more digital transformation.
And most importantly, the world-class products which they build. If this Gujarat-based chemical company is manufacturing sulfuric acid or a caustic chlorine, the quality of the final product is one among the top 3 anywhere in the world. And that's how it is, across the board. We work with 2-wheeler manufacturing companies, 4-wheeler manufacturing companies. Today we have, few 4-wheeler manufacturers from India where even a European in a Prague or in a Norway, they are driving, these vehicles, or 2-wheelers being driven by an African, an African country, etc. But this needs to be more prevalent, more household.
So that's your external strategy. That's brilliant.
So that is how, how other than creating Bert Labs as an institution, how we can enable companies in medium enterprise and large companies from India become, global institutions. So that's what our larger goal is.
And internally also you can do it. Today you've crossed a certain amount of revenue, very large.
Yes.
And, I want you to stick upon this equity funded model versus, growing and the institution building through traditional means of generating cash.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that there has to be a fine balance between the
Yes,
two. What do you mean?
very important.
What
Yeah.
do you mean by that?
So, as we were sharing, a few minutes back, that whether a company in first year or whether the company in 50th year or 100th year, the fundamentals are the same. Perfect product market fit. Clients is the key. Clients next. Profit revenue from day one. Why, profit needs to come in later, even for a B2C company.
Yeah.
Because there is a word out there that we are a B2C company, we will right now focus on market share. We will focus on revenues. Profits, we'll realize it later. And that later also, the entrepreneurs, founders don't have a visibility.
Yeah,
That's where nobody knows. That's where, and the funding also is not based on the profitability where, these companies will get to. So the fundamentals need to be the same. So at Bert Labs, our first project, second project, all they stand on their own feet. Like what the fees, what we get, and the capital which we spend should be sustainable. That program by itself will be sustainable. Another program will not, fund a different program. So from that perspective, today we would be closing around 20 plus at the EBITDA level in 6 years of our operations, and around 150 crore in 6 years of our operations, keeping in mind the 2 years of pandemic, because in those 2 years we were not able to deploy our solution. Why? Because we were not invited to a manufacturing plant for obvious reasons, because visitors were not allowed in the manufacturing plants. The moment we got that freedom, we started to deploy.
No, it's a very interesting proposition. You would also agree with me that you said deep tech companies must be measured differently.
Yes.
Simply because IP creation takes longer.
Yes.
You want to tell that for the benefit of the audience, where deep tech companies will bleed for the first 5-6 years, but they will offer better returns because of the patent and IP, right? That's a different way of looking at it too. Those companies need to be funded.
Yes.
And the timeline of equity patience should be longer.
Yes. But Vishal, if you allow me, I'll just
please
correct just one part of what I heard from you. It should not be that for innovation, we have our company bleed.
Okay.
So we can, have innovation, but at the same time be self-sustainable, have that model created. And that's what precisely Bert Labs is doing. Okay. But coming back to your focus point here, and that's what, we need to generate here in India in terms of the consciousness and the education, which is revenue and profits, as I shared, as we are discussing, very important, fundamentally important, needs to be focused on from day one. But at the same time, there is problem solving. And problem solving through innovation. So, building products from scratch. What we have learned here in India is mainly system integration. To pick up this product from here, pick up this product from there, and to integrate these products, whatever development we need, we do that. Okay. And then package that as a solution and sell it to our clients. This needs to change. Where we have, the audacity, I'm using this word very responsibly, to build a product from scratch. When we started this journey of Bert Labs, first 2 years we were discouraged by the managing directors of the electronics companies like Analog Devices, Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, but Indian managing directors. Where, Rohit, you have a lot of controllers out there. You have a lot of smart energy meters out there. You have a lot of smart.
So why do you want to build?
Why do you have to? Why do you have to build it on your own?
Yeah.
But my argument to them is that once a company goes through that rigmarole of building these products, there comes a point where that understanding, that experience leads to what ingenious work you can do on top of this, which the world hasn't seen.
Otherwise, just be a services company, right?
Absolutely. So that rigor of building a product for any company is a must for you to build. Today, we are at a juncture where we have gone through that rigor, whether it's on the hardware side or whether it's on the software side, and we are very well placed to build something for the world.
So you built your own brain. You weren't dependent on external systems.
We built our own brain. We built our own digital transformation infrastructure, the data transformation infrastructure, which is sensing, transmission, storage, all that has been built from scratch.
Yeah, for the benefit of the audience, what he also means is it can connect to multiple clouds. If you're on AWS, Azure, whatever, it still connects to that.
So, like I was talking about how, this rigor of building your product from scratch helps. Now, we build edge computing device. Now, unless we go through that grind, I will not be at a point where I can run AI models on edge. All the edge computing devices out there, all for your listeners, have the ability to infer AI logic. So the final AI model can be hosted on the edge computing device and it can be inferred from there. We have that ability, plus we have the ability of running AI models. So very close to where these equipments are in the manufacturing plants, AI models run. So that innovation is from Bert Labs. And similarly, what you spoke about, which is, the state-of-the-art multi-tenant distributed computing platform, what we have built, it can be hosted on any of the public cloud. It can be hosted on any of the private cloud. It can be hosted on the edge computing device. It can be hosted on an on-premise server. So for business continuity, the controls get executed very close to where equipments are, which is through the controllers, on the edge, on-premise server, and from the cloud.
Fantastic. Now, this is where I want to talk about you as a leader. You went from being in finance to becoming a technical person. How did you do that? And obviously you took over many C-suite positions early on in your life. You had a younger position. You could have remained there. You could have just retired there. Why did you move to the technical side? And because you're talking AI like an engineer, how essential was that for you to transform this?
So I began, yes, you're very right. I began my journey with American Express Bank, a pure banking role, personal financial services role. A lot of, people with operations background, because banking is also operations, especially, B2C banking, which is largely personal financial services, were being hired in the captive IT BPO ecosystem at that time. So I was one of them, who was headhunted from Amex to GE. So that's how, my journey started in the world of IT services, because GE set up, their captive GE Capital International Services here in India, where the entire IT infrastructure as well as their business services infrastructure, around 30% of GE businesses globally. And GE was the major group at that time. It's not what it is today. So one of the most admired companies ever. And, I remember the number, it was a 160 odd billion US dollar revenue company, true business conglomerate. So across their businesses, the IT and the business services requirement was being outsourced. So that's the world, how it started, my journey in the tech space. But it was largely around tech services. But what I tried doing very purposefully is I abhorred the concept of that you price your clients based on the input which you take, which still today is, the IT services model. And this is, antithesis to what business needs to be. Your pricing to your clients need to be based on the output
and outcomes.
Right? So what I very early on started to do with Hayes, with R.R. Donnelley, with Macmillan, and with HOE services is to have a platform-based services model, where if I am servicing the payer side and provider side in healthcare space, I need to have a platform, a technology platform created. I will make that as a SaaS product to my client. On top of that, I'll offer services.
Brilliant. So you measure outcomes.
Yes.
And it's a revenue share almost.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes, right? Absolutely. So that's how, it was different. So whether it was at Hayes, whether it was at RRD, Macmillan, our EBITDA margin was 25 to 30%. Whereas, our competitors were at anywhere from 13% to 17, 18%, their EBITDA margin. At HOV services, we had $600 million revenue on top of 11,000 people. And a 500 revenue company easily has 30,000 people.
So you always realize the benefit of technology way on.
Absolutely.
That's how
That's
you
the
built
point.
it, yeah.
That's the point.
But when you move into things like AI and machine learning and cloud, hybrid clouds, they talk about front end, back end technologies, different names to it. How did you move there?
So it happens, with an
And
approach.
hardware too. So that's
Yeah,
the reason.
yeah. Hardware was very new to me.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So it happens, from the perspective of having an approach which is problem-led approach. It's not a product-led approach. And this is one area where most of the entrepreneurs go wrong. Have a problem-led approach. So this is the problem I want to address. Now, to solve this problem most effectively, if I need hardware, I'll build hardware and therefore go through that learning process. The another point is, as we have spoken, that everything is evolutionary, meaning we started to talk about data very early on. We started to talk about data analytics very early on. A lot of companies around healthcare, around CPG, started to do data analytics. We at HOV Services also started to do data analytics around banking, around healthcare. Now, over and above data analytics came AI. More complex models, which are mathematically driven, which has the ability, to find correlations not between few tens of parameters, but several thousands of parameters. So it was a very seamless transition for me from a software standpoint. But yes, hardware was new and it was easily overcome. Why? Because of this approach of being problem-led.
Okay, great. This interview is wonderful. I have learned so much, and I'm sure the audience has as well. Rohit, I can't let you go without asking your favorite books. You must be reading a lot, but do you find time to read? How do you organize yourself? Give us these resources that we can benefit from, because you've done leadership at a very young age. You've built a startup now, and which makes money. That's the core thing, Tell me some of your favorite reading habits or authors or mentors that you'd recommend.
Your questions also were really invigorating.
Thank you.
And this last question also is allowing me to think, because nowadays I'm not reading much, working literally 16, 18 hours a day. But the reading is a lot about what's latest out there, whether it's Europe, Israel, US, in the world of AI.
Okay.
So a lot of research papers which I'm reading. There are plenty of books around AI. And one book which everybody should start with is a book from Richard Sutton. Which is, who is considered to be the father of AI.
Okay.
And then there are a lot of, work which a lot of these professors in universities in US and some of them in Europe, and handful of them here in India also, they are doing. So a lot of research papers which get published by them is something which you should focus on.
And AI is going to make profound impact in our life going forward. It's something that we cannot neglect, right? It's just like drinking water now.
No, it's already part of our lives.
Okay.
Google Map is all about AI.
Agreed.
Your Amazon Echo at home is all about AI.
Yes.
The advertisement which you get in your Gmail, Hotmail is all about AI. WhatsApp is all about AI. So AI is already part of our daily existence. The Amazon platform, Flipkart platform, which we use for our daily purchase is all about AI. The behind the scene, engine which is running and which is understanding all your requirement and delivering in line with your requirement is all about AI.
Wow.
So AI is already changing how we are operating in our personal lives and professional lives, and will continue to change that.
Okay.
So it's just a beginning. We have just scratched the surface. And talking about, books, not just, AI in terms of leadership is something which has driven me from day one.
In your younger years, you read quite a lot.
Because at the end of the day, whether it's a game of cricket, whether it's a game of football, whether it's the corporate world, it's everything is around leadership. And leadership during tough times. So, some of the books to read around it is books by Jack Welsh, which basically through his journey at GE in terms of transforming GE
in good and bad times. Yes.
And especially in bad times, because leadership comes into handy and invaluable during difficult times. And that's what, we are doing at Bert Labs also. And all those books which I have read from Jack Welsh has come in handy.
And you met him, right? You said.
Yes. And this is, a couple of times I had the good fortune, and I'm blessed. That's the word for it. In terms of attending, the Crotonville Leadership Summit, which used to happen. I don't know about it now, every alternate year. And top 1% of GE leaders across businesses, across geographies were called in for, this leadership summit. So that event, once when I attended it, it was addressed by Jack Welsh. So whether it is as part of the common address or whether it's 101, I had that good fortune. Other than Jack Welsh, some of the other authors is Ram Charan, along with Larry Bossidy and some other, co-authors which we have had. Whether it is, Built to Last, which is a great book for all of you, to read. Then there's another book by Ram Charan, and I forget the co-author's name, which is No Business is a Mature Business. That's a book which will never die. No business is a mature business. Many times we feel that, this business has matured. So let's not focus on this in terms of investment, etc. But that book very rightfully claims that no business is a mature business. Another book which comes to my mind right now is Only Paranoia Can Survive. Now, that's a classic book by Andy Grove. It will be relevant for whether it's 2023 or 2050.
Do leaders have to be paranoid? In a
Yes,
sense? Really?
yes, and channelize their insecurity in the right way.
And for that you need mentors, or did you self-discover?
I self-discovered myself, but it was enabled by the leaders which I had. So mentors, if you have, you are blessed, and if you get a mentor, ensure that mentorship remains with you. And today, we hired 16 IIT grads. All of them, they joined us. And this is one advice which I had for all of them, which is because until then, your parents were your mentors. Now, your parents would always be your mentors, but now you're stepping out in the real world. Find, new mentors for yourself. And if you find one, stick to it, because it's a blessing.
It's so interesting. I can continue this because, I want to stick to you as a leader and leadership. How tough is leadership for you, in a sense, from the corporate world to the startup world? You've been able to blend both worlds. A lot of young people think that startup is an extension of college. It cannot be, right? Would you agree with me?
Absolutely. And your questions are also,
Thank you.
Every other question is a better question. So this is a brilliant question again. When I, did startup, or let me rephrase or correct myself, there's nothing like startup. When I started a company from scratch in 2017, the first thing I told myself, I am a nobody. Why do you find people with accomplished background as professionals not able to start something from scratch? One reason is that their learning slows down, because there is a thing which has in them that they have done enough, they have accomplished enough, there's not much to do now. And that subconsciously slows down your learning. And for you to start all over again, your learnability quotient needs to be very, very high. Every year it needs to increase. So that's one thing which I was blessed with. And the other thing which I told myself is, put your ego in a trunk and have that trunk in the deepest end of the ocean. You're nobody. When you go to a client, you're not going to a client with 20 years of accomplished business leadership background.
They
don't care. And you're going to a client that you are founder CEO of a company which is zero right now. When you are talking to your partner ecosystem, you're talking from the same space. When you're talking to a talent, you're talking from the same space, that this is where we are starting, and you're joining this ecosystem. So that's that's another very fundamental yet very important thing for any entrepreneur, that keep your ego at bay. It's very difficult, but you have to constantly work on yourself. Another thing which is of great relevance is innovation and growth mindset during difficult times. I want to just take
Please, you should
2 more minutes here.
please.
Bert platform solution was built for HVAC system in commercial buildings. COVID happened, commercial buildings went out of fashion. What we did at that time is we'll keep a growth mindset, we'll keep an innovation mindset. So manufacturing was always on the anvil, but it will come later. What we realized is this crisis, we should use an opportunity and have Bert platform solution built for manufacturing, have Bert GTM strategy inclined towards manufacturing. And 2021, 22, we built Bert platform solution for cement, chemical, pulp and paper, FMCG, pharma, automobile. And today, as I speak with you, 30 plus deployments, 20 plus more to go. Now, growth mindset, innovation at the time of crisis. That's very, very important, because periodically you will go through tough times. There's no other way. It's like life. The life cycle which you and I have as human beings, a company goes through the same life cycle. And you and I have in our lives more tough times rather than, relatively more easier times. And during tough times, please keep your growth and innovation mindset going.
And that's how I want to end this conversation. It's learning to me. And I think, don't be depressed. Don't let anything beat you down. You have to have that technical quotient. You need to learn, unlearn. Well, like you said, bury the ego in a trunk and keep it deep somewhere, and don't dig back. Thank you, Rohit. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much for having
me
here.